How are you?
Doing great. I've been looking forward to this discussion today because I think it's very appropriate for the time we're in. And I'm Sherry Frazier. I'm a real estate agent that specializes in divorce in Central Kentucky. I'm with Keller Williams Greater Lexington. Also, I'm a divorce coach, and my company, divorce coaching business, is called Seasons of Divorce. And this is Susie Wheeler, and she is also a life coach. I'm going to let her tell you about herself. But basically, we decided that during this this COVID-19 crisis, that it would be a good time for us to have some discussions about divorce and life, and so this is one of the topics that we decided to approach today, and it's basically the challenges of real estate during COVID-19 and what you can or need to do, and some things you need to think about. So, Susie, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then add anything you want to, and then we'll just get into the discussion.
All right. I'm Susie Wheeler, the relationship yogi, and I am I'm a relationship coach, and I coach people looking for love, 50 and over, and in relationships. Sherry, I'll just tell Sherry, I had been, I don't think we've discussed this, I had been on a coaching call several months ago, and I had a coach that kind of shamed me about the coaching I was doing. So that's why I started talking just to women 50 and over. And so then last week I was talking to my coach, and I was like, I'm a love coach. I'm a relationship coach. It's what I'm all about. So I love talking to people. I've had experience with divorce and a yucky divorce, and so I'm really passionate about happy, healthy relationships and helping people have them and helping people find them. So that's what I do, and I work with people mostly older, midlife and older.
Yeah. That's definitely something I think we should discuss in one of our conversations. We do this about once a week, usually around this time of day. But we really want to help women, especially in over 50, that are going through this very, very trying, scary time of their lives, and trying to figure out who am I going to be moving forward. Mm-hmm. And it's very scary for us in that situation. And I too have been through a divorce. That I was married for several years, and at 50 years old, found myself basically starting over. And I had to learn how to be a single person at my age. And things are good. I'm not saying that it was hopeless even then, but I just want to encourage women and help them to find that next step and what their past's going to look like. So that's why Susie and I have decided to do this, and hopefully this will bless you and will help you move forward. So anyway, so Susie and I were talking about a topic, and as a real estate agent, there's lots of things that have occurred and come to my attention that make real estate very confusing. We're not really sure what's going to happen from day to day as far as being able to do our transactions. How do we sell a house? How do we negotiate a contract? And then once we do get an agreed on contract, what's going to happen, or what can we expect for in the closing process. And it is challenging right now. We have managed as a profession and a market to shift very swiftly, and so real estate's still moving, real estate's still selling, we're still doing closings, and I do have some statistics to share with you a little later, but I just wanted to hopefully give some clarity to the situation. The sky's not falling. We are still managing to sell real estate and do transactions, and we're very creative in how we do that, and we're just shifting with the market. It was expected to eventually happen, and it is here. but it's different. And so anyway, there's just some things that I wanted to point out. Susie, do you have any specific questions?
Yes. Now that you were talking, I just wanted to ask, because you all are still doing transactions. My parents actually bought another house in Florida just a week and a half ago.
Great.
My friend Don Glover just today closed on a vacation condo in Hilton Head. So
Yay.
I've seen real estate transactions, but because I think I would be one of these people. I know I would, as a matter of fact. I would not, if I trusted my agent, if I trusted my real estate agent, I could buy a house without seeing it. Have you had that experience?
Oh, yeah, yes, very, very much so.
My parents bought the house they live in Florida from Kentucky. The papers were signed. They were already closed before they ever set foot in that house. And this was last year.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID. So that's a thing that happens.
It can, and that was one of the things I was going to discuss, is there are ways to do real estate without ever being there. In normal circumstances, I would not recommend it. I would not recommend that you bought a house without stepping foot in it and actually seeing it. But we have ways of doing that for you. Home inspectors can really, get down to the bare bones and see, if there's anything that's not functioning properly. But we can present a house or property to you with, video. We can do it on our cell phones. We can do it, on our iPads or whatever. And you can really see the house. We also have, and I'll just get right into it. So if you are a buyer and you're looking for a house, and you've gone online, you've looked at it, but that's really kind of like, okay, where do I go from here? If you have a real estate agent that has the capability and the knowledge of how to do this, we can do the virtual tour for you, but we can also hire companies that do a great job. They have, really good equipment, and so it can, give a better picture of the property. And also they do what's called a Matterport, and it shows you the room size and how the room's set up, where the walls are and all that stuff, and the measurements. And so there's lots of things that you can do with the new softwares and the equipment that's available to us as agents. Now that's something that, there is a cost to that, where we could, snap a picture with our cell phone. But if I have a serious buyer and they are, they're not here to see it, then that, I'm going to make sure that they have as much knowledge as they can. We also have seller's disclosures that we provide, that the seller has had to fill out to give the buyer information on the age of the appliances and the HVAC and water heater and the roof and that kind of thing. And if they have any problems that they've had fixed, so there's things that we can provide information.
Right. That's all. Now let me ask you this though.
Sure.
Because this just came to my mind too, because now, okay, so say, now I understand if it's an empty home, but say somebody is still living there. How are you or an inspector going to get in the home and the people who are selling it feel safe? Now, because that's my stop point. That would be my stop point. Like, you're not coming in here.
Right.
So how do you do that?
Yeah. So as a seller, you're going to be concerned about people coming into your home as well, and vice versa. So we advise our sellers to, we do as much as we can virtually. Do the same thing. If I have a listing, then I'm going to have, a professional photographer do all that stuff. They're going to do the Matterport. They're going to, we have a seller's disclosure. We have all that stuff provided. But then after you've seen that virtual tour of the home, and you're a qualified buyer, so I don't advise sellers to allow people to just come in their house. So you're going to have to,
I didn't know.
You're going to have to know that they have proof of funds. So that's another discussion point that I have. But so if you can leave all your lights on, to have somebody come in your house, leave all your lights on, leave all the doors to your cabinets open, your doors to the rooms, so nobody's really having to touch anything. They can just walk through. We can
Got it.
also provide masks. We can provide shoe covers. We can provide disinfectant, wipes. There's so many things that we can have right there. So, your agent can go back in and wipe things down if you prefer that, or you can do that when you get home. But if the
Right.
people that are looking at your house are protecting you as well as themselves, then we don't have a real issue, and you could feel comfortable with it. But the first thing is to make sure that they have had a virtual tour of the home without them coming there. And then,
Right.
and I just had this recently. There was a family that had their home listed, and I had the buyer. And so my buyer hired a home inspector, and he was going in. Well, they were concerned about the fact that he was going to be in there and possibly the buyer coming after the fact, which in normal situations we would have the buyer show up after the inspection was done, and then the inspector would go over things with them. So in this case, the seller didn't feel comfortable with that. So the buyer agreed that they would just do a virtual walkthrough because the home inspector provides a written, inspection report and pictures. So it's really easy for you to do that. And so we were able to prevent, but very many people being in the house. It was just the home inspector.
All right.
So that there's things that can be overcome. There, it's not really that scary a situation if you put in the right precautions in place. We also do virtual open houses. So like if we have a house listed and we want to do an open house, instead of having people come through, we would be in the house showing pictures and then answering questions. If it was like Facebook Live or something, they could ask us questions there, or they could private message us. And we can answer those questions while we're there. Like if they wanted, I want to see what color that room is, or what certain things, like what kind of kitchen cabinets and appliances is there. So we could, specifically focus on those things and still give our buyer that experience without them physically being there.
Right. So I would think one of the things that I guess some of the worries during this time would be if you are splitting, if you're splitting real estate, and say that you are, and I don't know if this is, because remember when we were messaging, maybe this is something maybe you've just had experience with it. Say that you started the divorce process during this, and you or your spouse are trying to move out, but you don't want to just move to an apartment, you want to buy. Do you know about that? Do you have that type of knowledge? Like, even if the divorce is not final, can another spouse, do you always recommend waiting until the divorce is final to buy?
You don't have to, and that is basically, there's lots of people that would need to be consulted on that. Of course, your attorney. You would have to know what your divorce agreement said.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So the spouse that is not the one that wants to buy can have the other spouse sign a waiver that they will not have any claim to. It's called a quit claim.
Yeah, quit claim deed.
Yeah, but here's the kicker: is that the person that's buying has to be able to qualify on their own. And so that would be a consultation with the lender that would be required.
True.
And you would need to for sure have a real estate divorce or a title attorney to do the paperwork to make sure that those documents were written correctly. Because there's certain things that have to take place. They have to be filed properly, and there's just lots of things that you would have to have done, and you want to make sure that that is legally binding. Because in Kentucky, if you're still married, and you normally, if you purchase a home, that spouse is also owner, regardless of whether they're on the mortgage or not. They will be on the deed. Right. And even if the deed does not have their name on it, because of the legalities, then most title write a policy, which is an insurance that says that if there is a defect on the title after I close, then there's lots of things that could be defects of the title, and that's a whole different conversation. But that this insurance will provide me, protection against losing my equity that I have in the house.
Right.
All financing requires, all mortgage loans require title insurance, but that only covers the lender. It does not cover the owner. So that's something else that you need to have a discussion with your closing attorney or your title attorney and your loan officer to find out what that would cost. I do highly recommend it. In today's world, because the courthouses are closed, the attorneys are not sometimes not able to get a good title search because they can't research the records the way they normally would.
Right.
A lot, like Fayette County has, titles and deeds online, and the attorney can do that, but that only goes back so far. And normally they would go into the courthouse and they would follow the whole chain of title, which is every deed that affects that property. And it can get quite complicated. Believe me, I've seen some that are just, in no way could I figure them out. And I'm sure that most attorneys would have trouble too, especially in rural areas where they don't have really good records, and there's definitely nothing online. So that would prevent the attorney from doing a really good title search. So they do advise that you get owner's title insurance in addition to, because you're going to pay for the lender's title insurance regardless. So it just costs a little bit more to add your coverage on there, and so we are highly recommending that today,
especially in this time. I would do it always. Owner's title insurance. Even if it's like a ballpark. I mean, is it $100 or $500 or more?
It goes by the amount of the mortgage, how much the property
there you go
value is.
I think that's 100%.
It's a calculation that they do, and I don't really know a lot about the cost of title insurance, and I'm sure it changes too. It probably's gone up, or it's different today than it was in normal circumstances. But that definitely is something to discuss with your team, your real estate agent, your loan officer, your title attorney, definitely your family law, your divorce attorney needs to be involved. And all this information can be shared with your judge if and when that becomes an issue that you can't, agree during mediation or outside of the court, and you have the judge to decide. They don't know all this stuff, so they need to have that information available to them. And so it's a very, good idea that you have all of your documents and all your information ready instead of going before when things do come. Right now you can't go to court at all unless it's an emergency. And there are situations even with your real estate transaction that could be emergency. But so if you can't get into court right now, then you want to make sure that you're prepared whenever you are able to go, because you're going to go before the judge if you are lucky enough to get on the docket. And if you're not ready, they're going to say, come back when you are, and then it's going to be another delay. So, we've got time right now. Let's get prepared. And if you don't know what you need to do to prepare, then, talk to your team, send me a message. I'll be glad to give you any advice, as long as it's real estate related, that I can also tell you other professionals that you can talk to that can give you advice. And most of that advice is going to be free.
Right.
So,
now I knew of a situation, a husband and wife divorcing, and so I don't know how common it is, and but I thought it was, to be quite honest, it's really like a workaround. They divorced. The divorce was final. The ex-wife bought a house, but she could not qualify for it on her own income. He was the co-borrower.
That is, sometimes that works out. It's just,
And then
whatever they're willing to agree to.
exactly. And then signed a quit claim deed
Mm-hmm.
to where he was not on the deed to the house, he was just the co-borrower. And she
Uh-huh.
had her own, and they were really thorough. And she
Yes.
had the deed of survivorship, and
Mm-hmm.
it went to her sister, not the co-borrower.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he was only the co-borrower. He wasn't on the deed.
Yeah, and that can happen too. And
It
there's
worked.
different rules.
So
And again,
I just wanted
there's
to like
different
kind of
rules for that.
open those types of creative thoughts out, because
Mm-hmm.
even if you don't, as a woman, qualify for a mortgage, hey, if it
Mm-hmm.
is, if there are some, if there's some amicable talk, and
Mm-hmm.
and there's an ability for you to have your own home, you could pay for it, or however that's going to go,
Mm-hmm.
but you just can't qualify for it, because that happens.
Right, and it does. And a good loan officer can walk you through those things, and also your title attorney.
That's how I knew
These
that
are all
that
the things
happened
that
when I was a loan officer. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. So you got some experience with that too. And of course, everything's changed as far as mortgages and loans, even before the virus. But um, all of these things that we're discussing, there's different people that are experts at it, but very few family law attorneys have any knowledge of this, because that's not their field, and they don't study it. They may have to have a little bit of real estate knowledge, but for the most part, they don't know, and they don't keep up with how things change. So it's
Right.
even more important that you have a team around you. And one of the things that I don't think I've brought up during our discussions, but I'm a founding chapter president, I guess, of the National Association of Divorce Professionals Lexington chapter. We haven't launched it, but we do have some members. But it is a fantastic team to have available to you if you're of any profession that deals with divorcing clients. This organization provides you with people that you can go to for information, and also a network that will you train and educate on those. So for a family law attorney to have that available, that information available to them on a regular basis, and a referral partners for their clients, it will help them to be so much more efficient and able to represent their clients and just do their divorce legal part of it, and not have to do with the emotional and the financial and the real estate and all the other stuff. And real estate agents can provide real property valuations.
Yeah.
It's usually a very inexpensive resource for you as an attorney representing your client. And, because a lot of people have the impression that if I go on Zillow and Zillow says this is what my house is worth, then that's what it's worth. Zillow is not even, most of the time, they're not even close to what the real property value is.
Right.
And, real property value is closer to what an appraiser would give you, as far as, how much you could borrow to purchase a property, or, what you could likely sell your home for. And that enables you to know what your property's worth in order for you to get the divorce agreement, the property agreement. But that's a valuable resource. They can also provide, that information to your judge to substantiate, what you are asking for.
Yes.
Or if there is if you don't have any equity in your home and you're trying to, come up with a certain amount of money to split, then you're going to know up front that, this is not realistic. So it's just a really good resource. But also loan officers can help a lot with, okay, this is what you can afford to buy, or this is what, you could, if you had this, if you refinance and you got your cash out of your equity in your home, which right now is an amazing tool for homeowners that are kind of in a crunch, and they need the money for their living expenses, but you don't want to borrow, you don't want to take money out of equity out of your home and have to pay it back if you're just going to take it and blow it. You want to, especially right now, you want to make sure that you take that money and put it somewhere and use it only for your living expenses. If you don't have what used to be available to you, especially in divorce, 9 times out of 10 women, and particularly, do come away without even 50% of what they're normally used to having as far as income.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing to be thinking about. Maybe you need to do that before the divorce is final. Of course, the other party has to agree because you have to refinance it together. But that's a good tool. But loan officer can provide that information or help to you to know what your options are.
Right.
And that is one of the options, because there's been a lot of talk about forbearance, and forbearance is basically where they give you longer time to pay back your mortgage.
Yes.
It doesn't mean they're going to forgive that mortgage loan or
Right.
mortgage payment. It's going to be paid back one way or the other. And it may be that they forbear it to 2 or 3 months from now. But that only means that if you don't pay it today, you're going to pay 3 months worth of payments then, because it will be due unless they put it on the end of the loan. And sometimes they will, but that's a question for your mortgage lender. Whoever's holds your mortgage, you need to discuss that with them to see what options are there as well. But just keep in mind, it's not forgiveness of your loan. And if you do go into forbearance and you find out you're not going to be able to make those payments back, you can't go and refinance your property for another 12 months. And that's according to a recent discussion I had with the loan officer. So,
right.
Those are things that I can't advise you on financing of any sort, but I, have people that I network with that do have that information and that expertise. And I would, suggest that you go talk to someone that is in that field. So that way you know what can happen if you do take advantage of the forbearance, or, if you want to refinance, later after, your divorce. If you decide, okay, I want to go and refinance this property, if you've been in forbearance, you may not be allowed to do that. So that's another thing that you just need to keep in mind. And I did discuss the fact that courthouses are closed for the most part, except for online. Closing attorneys and title companies are still closing loans.
Yeah.
Or deals. So don't think that you're not going to be able to do it. But what happens is, instead of you going in normally like you would have your real estate agents with you, both parties, the buyer and the seller, both parties, and the closing attorney in there, and sometimes the loan officer, they're all in one conference room together. They're definitely not 6 feet apart. Well, now you go, you may be able to go in with both the seller and the buyer together, but your real estate agent and your loan officer are not allowed in the room. And most of the time they have to stay outside and wait on you. Right. So that's what's happening right now, but they're still closing lots of deals. And it's definitely, I'm going to share some statistics with you. And this is in Central Kentucky. What are
the interest rates?
Interest rates are a little higher, and that's a lender loan officer question.
Okay.
I have been quoted different rates. I know credit scores have gone up a lot. Your minimum credit score and your down payment amount is a lot higher than before. There still is, government loans. There's FHA. There's Kentucky Housing. Right. But all of that stuff, there's conventional loans with low down payments. But all that depends on your credit score, other factors that I can't, advise you on. So I would just ask, just recommend that you talk to a loan officer and get the details, because only they can tell you what they can do. And all, mortgage companies, banks, there's mortgage brokers, they all have different guidelines that they go by, but a lot of the, they're almost all pretty competitive in what they can do. Yeah. But if you get turned down by one, does not mean that you necessarily won't be able to get approved through someone else, because they do have products, what they call products that they can provide, and they're all different. So I do plan on in the upcoming weeks interviewing local lenders, so you can kind of get an idea of what's going on and who can do what. And so I'll be providing that here in the next few weeks.
Oh, nice.
Excuse me. So as far as statistics, I kind of went back and looked what's been going on in the last 30 days since this really, this quarantining and everything took place, so about March the 1st. But I found that we currently have, and this is the local MLS is Central Kentucky, so it's all counties and broader that touch Fayette County.
Yeah.
So Fayette County, of course, is going to be the most have the most impact on the numbers, but it does, contain the whole Central Kentucky market.
Yeah.
And it's LBAR is our multi-listing service. So just to kind of explain where I get these, Lexington Board of Realtors. So we have 2,643 active listings right now. That's still pretty good.
Yeah.
So in the first quarter, we had, now that does include that does include all listings since the 1st of January that are currently active, is what I'm trying to say. But in the first quarter, we had 673 active listings. And then we currently have 2,120 of those pending. So that means that they have gone under contract since the first of the year. And it's kind of the first quarter, I guess, is most of the statistics. But I try to really break down it into the last 30 days. And so we had 1,605 sold listings.
Yeah.
So that's, still really good because in the first quarter, we had 1,656. So if you take that in the last, we're a little bit higher right now in solds than we were in the whole first quarter of the year. So that's really encouraging. Also, what was encouraging was that our average days on the market is just 37 to 41 days. And 60% of those were less than 30 days. So there's still, lots of activity, lots of houses selling really quickly. The average list price for the last quarter was $273,000, and the average sold price was listed price was $219,000, but the average sold price, and that's for all price ranges, was $195,000 in Central Kentucky.
Right.
And that is way up from the first quarter, and our average days on the market was 57 to 60 days, with only 50% being sold in less than 30 days. And our average listed price was $204,000, and our sold was $175,000. So, it's better right now during this than it was in the first quarter of the year. So that is encouraging to me. And for, like I said, I've been showing quite a bit of property lately, and things are going pending really quick. So it's, we're still getting multiple offers. We're still getting, lots of activity. It's just a little challenging on how we do it, but we're still able to do it.
So now and this is a lender issue. A friend of mine, their house was set to close. The lender won't close it because their income is affected by COVID, even though they've got the money in the bank, so what happened was the seller is letting them rent. So they got to go ahead and move. Their house sold. They've got the money in the bank from their house. Everything will go ahead as planned.
And they're lucky that they have a seller that's able to do that or willing to do that. That's really good. But that is a good point.
The seller had to go too. It was a chain event. It was a chain event. The seller had to go because the people in that house, it was like, oh wow.
Yeah. And that's the thing is we can't assume, even in a good time, we can't assume that just because you have a closing date that is in stone and it's going to close no matter what. Even if your buyer, everything's fine, there could be extenuating circumstances that cause you to have to, push it, back the closing date. And both parties have to be willing to agree to do that. And so those are situations that happen anyway, but right now it's even more a
Yeah.
possibility. And, you know, if they, if you've been under contract and you're the day before closing and that person loses their job, or, you know, that they do have to go on unemployment, so their, you know, their income isn't as high, then there is that high possibility that you're going to not be able to sell that house to that buyer, and you're going to have to go back on the market. So here's one of the things that yesterday I did a video, but I do encourage you, if you have a listing that you have on the market and you have it under contract, but you still have a lot of activity, a lot of people that want to come through, or you've had a lot of showings and you picked one buyer over another.
Yeah.
You know, make sure your agent goes back to those other agents and tells them this house is coming back on the market. You don't have to wait till it's released and back on the market. Let them know that it's coming back on the market, because their buyers may have been really disappointed and are still looking for a house. So you have a different, you know, you have another buyer that's coming right back. And this has happened to me several times.
Yeah.
I've had on both sides of the listing and the buyer, and that first contract's fallen through and we had a backup.
Yeah.
And as a buyer, and you know, agents should tell you, you know, just because this house is pending, if you like it, let's make an offer. We may be a second or a backup offer. I've had this happen several times. And if we're a backup offer and that one falls through, then we immediately already know we've already negotiated terms, so we know we can buy this house. And it does happen, even, you know, in a market where we're not dealing with this virus. So you don't want to just assume that that's off the table, because it may not be.
Right. Nice. Nice. Those are great, because that was, you know, during divorce, and the thoughts, what you said, you know, and things are different. Yes, they are different, but they're not undoable. Like you said, I had no idea, because I'm not in real estate, but I just know that I know people that have still been buying and selling homes. My parents are getting their home ready to sell in Richmond, and they you know, it's going along. They're doing whatever they're doing, you know, with their agent, but but that was one of the things during my divorce. That's why I asked that question on Messenger, because when we were getting divorced, Jeff wanted to file bankruptcy. I did not. And it ended up, it was challenging for me not to be on his bankruptcy. It really, I think somehow his attorney tried to convince me that it would be better for him, he and I both, if we both did it. And I was like, it would not. And so, but that was an interesting question, because the house that we had owned, he wanted that in the bankruptcy. Yeah. Instead of me.
Yeah, and listen, it's going to affect you if you are part of that bankruptcy. It's going to affect you just as much. And so that is definitely a question that you would want to discuss with an attorney.
Yes, because
that would be a bankruptcy attorney that you would need the advice from, not from your family or divorce attorney, because again, they may not have the knowledge that they need, but they need to have a team that they can, you know, go to and ask for that advice.
Well, what I did find out was that he wouldn't sign the quitclaim deed unless he wouldn't sign the quitclaim deed, period, because he wanted that house in the bankruptcy.
Yeah, he didn't want any responsibility for it.
Yeah, and see, I wanted him to stay on it and help pay. I wanted that to be part of our settlement. And then it didn't end up being, but that was a real, that, you know, the real estate transactions at this point, when they can't. Now, what are your thoughts on this as a divorce coach and a real estate agent? if you can wait and kind of get a little emotional bearing, do you think you should?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you do?
Yeah, I think that anytime that you got to make a decision like this, that you should be calm and not emotional.
Yep.
Especially when it comes to something like this that's going to affect you for years and years.
Yeah.
You don't want to just make a rash decision. And a lot of us have a tendency to be like, I just want this over with. Well, I'll agree to anything. I just want out of it. I mean, I know so many people that have done that. And then 2 years later, they're, oh my gosh, why did I do that?
Mm-hmm.
And
I did.
so, you know, and sometimes it's devastating and you can't recover from it for years financially, especially if you can't rebuild your own credit and you don't have a good paying job, you don't have good income. There's just so many things that affect your ability to recover. And so why wouldn't you want to have the best advice and the best team before you make these decisions? Because once you've signed them and they're agreed on by both parties and the judge, you know, signs off on it, it's done. I mean, you can't go back and change it. And, you know, then again, you know, what happens if you have a divorce agreement? And especially in this time, because you can't go before the judge. And, you know, one party's not cooperating or there's, you know, you've lost a job, you know, the ex has lost a job, whatever. There's so many things that can happen. You know, you really need to be as lucid as you can. You need to be as aware as you can. You need to have the best advice that you can have. And there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of professionals out there that are very good and they're very eager to help you and they'll give you free advice.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes they're not getting, again, you know, like I might not be selling you a house or listing your house, but I still am willing to help you with the real estate part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's several loan officers that would give you good advice. There's a lot of financial planners that would, you know, give you what if scenarios and not charge you anything for it. Yeah. But 100% of the time, you're going to pay an attorney for anything they do. And I'm not knocking attorneys. That's what they do for a living. But the reality is they would prefer that you got those services somewhere else because they just want to do their job. Yeah. And, you know, they don't want to be your counselor and they don't want to be your financial advisor and they don't want to be, you know, your real estate agent or any of those things. Or at least they shouldn't want to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And, you know, anytime that you can have a client, regardless of what your profession is, that is reasonable and not doesn't have a agenda to get back at the other person or doesn't have self-sabotaging thoughts, you know, or they're just such an emotional wreck that they can't even hardly get out of bed in the morning, you know, that it's a lot better if you can help them get to where they can, you know, have an intelligent conversation without breaking down and crying. And
exactly.
And here, another thing that we do is we shut everything out. You know, we don't listen to advice from people, but we do listen to our family and our friends that's telling us, you know, what their thoughts are, and they're not professionals. Right. You know, but we do, you know, we like to listen to them because they let us, you know, talk to them about our feelings too. So, I mean, you know, they encourage us and support us and emotionally, but they're not professionals. So, you know, really you don't want to take their advice, you know, yes, listen to it and, you know, have the conversation because they care about you, right. But don't believe because, you know, their experience maybe have nothing to do with your experience. I mean, everybody situation or somebody that they know went through this and this is what happened. Don't assume that that's going to be your case because it may not. It wasn't in mine. Right. You know, my outcome was totally unexpected. So, you know, a lot of us just have a tendency not to really listen to advice that we don't want to hear.
Well, that's what, you know, in the life coaching profession, that's what we call holding space. We don't jump in the pool. There's, you know, in my clients, I could be the only person in their life that tells them the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And well, that really most of the time that is right, because I don't
Mm-hmm.
empathize. I don't say, oh my God, I hate that happened to you. I don't. That's not my job. My job
Right.
is to get curious and help them get the result that they want.
Uh-huh.
What do you want? You want to make it on your own. You want to feel happy again. You want to, so I don't buy into your story. That's the
Mm-hmm.
thing. I don't buy into, oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I had, and it feels like that. It's not
Mm-hmm.
that I don't relate, because I do relate.
Mm-hmm.
I do relate.
Right.
And every single time, it's how we're thinking and feeling that creates our results. If
Yeah.
I'm thinking, just let me get out of here, I just want this over with,
Mm-hmm.
the result will probably be, oh, it'll be over with.
Yeah.
It'll
Yeah.
be over with.
Well, that
Um,
that part of it will, but the effects of it won't.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So the result, if the thoughts are, I can't deal with this, and you're feeling, you're feeling scared, you're feeling abandoned, you're feeling rejected,
Yeah.
then the actions are going to be that of knee-jerk reactions.
Mm-hmm.
Knee-jerk
Mm-hmm.
actions, and the results of those are going to, it'll be long
Yeah.
lasting until that thought process can change, and that, because the
Right.
circumstance is going to remain the same. I think that's funny. That's a lot. Well, I do it a lot. Is I think instead of changing my thoughts and my results, I want to change the circumstance. The circumstance will never
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
You know?
That's very true. That is
Yeah.
so true.
I want to change. Like I don't want this. I want this to be different. I want the laws to be different. I want this to be different. Well, no, I have to change my thinking for anything to
Uh-huh.
change, because the circumstance is always going to stay the same. As
Mm-hmm.
far as I know, I'm still divorced, and I still never got a dime of child support.
Yeah.
As far as I know, that's still, and that agreement is still legal.
Mm-hmm. And that brings up a point. You mentioned child support, but that also has the children also have a lot to do with how things go too, especially now when they're home, and that you've got this other dynamic of them going back and forth between two homes and being exposed, and you being afraid they're going to be exposed, or they have been exposed, and now you've got to they've got to stay at the other parent's house and they can't come home. And I mean, I can't imagine how difficult that would be for, and I think we discussed this on our last call.
Yeah.
But so if you do have your house on the market and you're still trying to sell it, what can you do, or what can you reasonably expect agents or other people to do? And if you have a child, you want to be a lot more particular about who comes and looks at your house and what they get exposed to, but also how are they feeling emotionally? Their house is for sale, their home is people are coming in their private space. So we have to be really sensitive to their needs as well. And some of the things that, that we as agents can do is, maybe not put a lockbox on the door, maybe not put a for sale sign in the yard where the child has to see it constantly.
Yeah.
Or whenever, there's showings, we just make sure that it's only whenever the child's not home.
Yeah.
There's lots of things that we can do to be sensitive to those kids.
Yeah.
And we do need to consider them during this or any other time, but especially now, because they've got so many things they're having to deal with right now, and the fear and everything. And so I just feel really bad for the kids, even in good times with divorce, but right now I just can't imagine if I'm in that situation.
Right. Well, and especially when I think it takes so long, and I think it takes certain experiences for us, even as adults, to dig deep into our mind
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
really know what we're thinking.
Yeah.
Because during my divorce, I thought, I've done a lot of writing on this, and I think I thought at that time that I wanted Jeff to love me again.
Mm-hmm.
And not I wanted him to stay.
Mm-hmm.
But really, what I was thinking was I didn't care if he
Mm-hmm.
did. I wanted him to stay regardless, even if he loved me or not.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know that until years later and
Yeah.
some real internal work.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a grown woman. So how can it's interesting, a child doesn't have the wherewithal to think these things, to know, to
Mm-hmm.
say like, all I think is I don't like it, but I just want to go play. I'm hungry, but I
Yeah.
wish Dad
Right.
was here, and I don't like you, and I don't know why. I, I'm, and I'm sure things like wetting the bed come back again, and
Uh-huh.
acting out, and I'm wanting this attention. And really, it could be just something as simple as I stop changing stuff. I don't like it.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
kids are, they
Even
don't,
adults hate change, but kids really do.
yeah, they don't know
Yeah.
they don't know that it's just, I mean, it's the selfishness of a child. Like, hey, stop
Mm-hmm.
changing, stop having different ways of thinking and doing and acting because I do this and this is how I like it. Stop doing different stuff.
Yeah.
And they don't
Right.
know to really say, like,
Don't rock my world.
like, quit rocking my world. I play my video games here and I talk to my friends. And when I have to go over here, the internet's not as good and it sucks. And,
Yeah.
that's what my son finally told me. It was great. This is not that long ago. I was just like, you always want to go to your dad's always now. Like, that's stupid. I mean, Jeff and I've been divorced forever, so I'm not,
Yeah.
I love Jeff. But I was just like, this is stupid. Why do you want to go to your dad's? He was just like, hello, his internet's better. And I was like, oh, so it's not that he's better.
Yeah.
And of course, my
Right.
15 is
It's more than likely it's not, but it that's funny. So
hello.
a lot
I
of
was
people,
like,
try to make like recreate their room at home, and everything's the same at the other place. Like we get the same colors and the same bedspreads and stuff like that, which I guess that really does help somewhat. But that's just a little thing that there's some bigger things going on here we need to really think about.
yes, yes. Now my daughter, it was interesting, just talking about kids and how they're affected. My daughter, when she was 20, she's 22 now, almost 23. When she went to college, this house that her dad and her brother lived in, that they had, when somebody else moved in with her dad, she cried a river when somebody moved into her room. I mean, this was a
Oh,
grown
yeah.
woman. She was 20 years old, almost 21. And I
I
didn't
get
realize
that. Yeah.
it hurt her feelings so bad.
Well, even adult children that are, parents divorced, they have these thoughts and feelings too. I mean, their life changes,
Yeah.
and they have somebody else that's in their home, in their family home. Things change, the rules change. You have
Yeah.
other kids that come into your life that you don't really like, or so there's just lots of things that even adult children don't particularly care about. But smaller children that don't really have a voice, they can't really, they're not allowed to be unhappy about things. Well, this has nothing to do with you. Your parents just don't like each other. It does affect them.
Big time. Well, and it's even if we tell them the things that make it seem better for them, it's not your fault, it's not this,
Uh-huh.
it's not
Right.
that. It's really easy for them to take on the role of our protectors. I can remember when I
Mm-hmm.
was really sad,
Yes, I
both
do
of
that.
my children were very preoccupied. Will you be happy? Are you happy, Mommy?
Mm-hmm.
Mommy, are you
Yeah,
happy?
yeah.
And I can remember that. And now I can even, that's very, ooh, I
Yeah.
hated putting them in that role, and it's happened in Que Sera and all as well. But I think it may have left some residual because my daughter, who is 22, but disclaimer, she's neurotic anyway. She loves it. Uh,
Hope she's not listening to us.
she exactly. I hope she knows she is, but
Mhm.
she's still very preoccupied with my happiness, and it's just
Mhm.
it's a habit. Are you
Uh-huh.
happy? Are you happy? And yeah,
Yeah.
she's very it's become a habit for her.
Yeah. Well, she loves her mama.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing is that I think a lot of us as mothers have a tendency to want to hang on to the marital home because it's where our kids grew up. That's
Oh,
where,
I
our
believe that.
children, and I think that we make decisions based on that too, which is not sometimes the best situation, even for them in the long run.
Yeah.
But then we got this other thing that we have to consider too is where am I going to live if I sell my home? Where am I going to live?
Yeah.
You may end up having to rent an apartment that you didn't want. I mean, I know people that live in apartments. I know women that are homeless because they didn't have the funds or the means to go and buy another house or even pay rent. And today you have to qualify to rent just like you do a mortgage. You have to have a certain credit score, and
Yeah.
there's it unless it's a place that you really don't want to live and you definitely don't want to bring your kids into. So there's some things that can happen. So again, it's best if you just open your eyes, you find a way to get on even um, footing, and have somebody that's giving you logical, unbiased advice on here is what you can reasonably expect, and
Yeah.
make good firm decisions not based on your emotions, because you
Right.
could get yourself in big trouble.
I think that's another, that just sparks and I'll send you this on Messenger.
Mm-hmm.
As I have to run, but
Yes.
I'll send you this on Messenger. What I think a great topic, and if anybody's watching and you think this would be a great topic, if this is something you are going through or getting ready to go through or scared of going through, is having another woman in your kid's life.
Oh yeah,
It's
that's
part
a
of
big one.
it's part of
Yeah.
it can be part of divorce.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All
Yep.
right. Well, Susie, thank you. It was great to talk to you again. And I just wanted to give you the opportunity to tell people how to get a hold of you.
All right. So you can email me at susie@therelationshipyogi.com. And I specialize in this situation. If if you're in this group, I am sure you're going through a divorce, getting ready to go through a divorce, but I would be, the reason to contact me would be to find out your patterns of thinking and what led to this. And just I'll leave you with something, because our our thinkings and our thinking and feeling, the way we thought and the way we felt, created this relationship that is now getting divorced in the first place. The way we thought, our thinking created that relationship. So if you can create that one, you can create another one that's even better with the new experiences going forward. So Susie at the
That's good.
Relationship Yogi.
All right. And I'm Sherry Frazier. I'm a real estate agent with Keller Williams, Greater Lexington, and I'm also a real estate divorce coach with Seasons of Divorce. You can reach me at 859-229-5945 or 859-644-9024. And you can always message me here on this platform. And I'm very, very available. You can find me anywhere. Just it's SHARI Frazier FRASURE. Thanks for
Awesome.
listening.
All
Thanks,
right.
Susie.
Bye,
Bye.
Sherry.